does know what he's talking about. So he says just as much. He's like, I think I know a little bit more about this than you. Okay, Weasley?
Yeah.
and Ron is like, hey, fuck you, man. And it's the instant before your buddy takes the 2 big power steps and knocks the other guy out. And Harry kicks him underneath the table, and he's like, hey, shut the fuck up. We weren't there. Remember? We have no idea why the carpet is missing and the bloodstains are on the floor. Ron.
It would be really hard to hear Gildy and probably a lot more people at the school just talking shit about Hagrid at this point, though, because he's just a big dumb groundskeeper and he got arrested, so everyone probably just assumes it was him, and they're probably talking mad shit.
And you're not just defending him because, like, he's your friend. You're defending him because you know he's a good guy.
Yeah, like, he loves people and animals. He's not gonna just attack the Muggleborns randomly. Like, he likes Muggleborns. He loves Hermione.
Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense that Hagrid would do this either, because Hermione's just as much a friend. He is a dude who deserves somebody to stick up for him. And, you know, on top of that, Hagrid stuck up for Harry.
Yeah.
He burst into Dumbledore's office and was like, fuck off. Harry didn't do nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't really in any trouble. Dumbledore just wanted to talk to him, but Hagrid was there.
Yeah. Hagrid didn't know that.
Right. So, yeah, it's good to see Ron, at least, if not Harry, do the same thing for Hagrid.
Well, Harry gets so worked up, he wants to throw books at Gildy, but instead, he just decides to write a note to Ron saying, we're doing this shit tonight, bud.
And Ron, you know, he looks over at Hermione's empty chair here, and it really has kind of a dramatic moment when he knows it has to do with spiders, and he does not want to go into the Forbidden Forest, and he looks over at Hermione's empty chair, and that gives him the resolve he needs to fucking see this thing through. And he just nods his head like a boss.
But here again, this is once again underlining that, like, Harry's pissed off, and his motivation is Hagrid. Hagrid and Dumbledore are being what he feels is wrongly persecuted for this.
Right.
And Ron keeps going back to that Hermione is in the hospital. Like, she's gone. She's hurt. She's in the hospital. Like, there's not even a little bit of Harry being like, oh man, our friend is gone.
No, fuck Hermione.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the fucking push he needs to be in. So, that night, Harry and Ron have to wait until everybody else goes to bed, which is well after midnight, to sneak out. Fred and George and Ginny are hanging out in there, as well as some other Gryffindors. One by one, they start going to bed, but they're playing wizard chess with Fred and George, because they keep inviting them to a game. They're like, fine. So they lose on purpose to get the shit over with. So be like, I think it's bedtime now, huh?
Yeah.
One more. Fuck. Okay. Sure.
I think we've all had those nights with our friends.
Finally, everybody goes to bed. And once they hear the dormitory door close, they throw on the cloak and they head outside. Now, this stuck out to me just a little bit because throughout the rest of these chapters, every time they put the cloak on, it's a thing getting around the castle. And we also know now that security is heightened. Mm-hmm. There are teachers walking around the castle in pairs because nobody is to be alone. They put this cloak on and they get right outside. It's like the next line or two. They're like, oh yeah, the castle was dark. They got to the door. They went outside. Boom. Just like that. No problem sneaking through the castle whatsoever.
No, not even a little bit. They don't run into any ghosts or teachers or cats.
Right. So either the teacher's security is pretty fucking lax, or they're getting good at this.
Or they had a stroke of luck and they just needed to keep riding that one.
Right.
Once they get out there, Ron brings up that maybe we won't see any spiders once we get there, right?
It should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then we can just go back to bed, and it'll be fine.
Sure.
And they reach Hagrid's house and see Fang, and he's so happy to see them because, you know, he's been locked up in a hut by himself since his best friend left.
He does not get happy, Jade. He goes mad with joy. I love that line because it's what every single dog does when you get home from work. They just lose their shit for about 5 whole minutes.
I've only recently started enjoying that little feeling from my dog, and it's very nice.
He's like, oh my God, it's you. You're the person who left like 8 hours ago or a lifetime ago. I can't tell. Yeah. You're back.
And he's like dancing and jumping into your arms, but then also running away at the same time. It's wonderful.
Right.
But they feed him treacle fudge that glues his like mouth shut.
Right, because they don't want him to bark.
And I wanted to see what was in that because fudge is generally not good for dogs, right?
Well, I think if there's chocolate in it, they can't have it.
Molasses based.
So there must not be chocolate in it.
I guess not. Let's see. Treacle is actually molasses, and fudge isn't made with chocolate unless it's chocolate fudge. So perfectly okay for Fang to eat.
Okay, so he didn't poison Fang.
Right.
Good. That would be a seriously dick move. Like, hey, Harry, I know you were supposed to be watching my dog while I was in prison and all that, but have you seen him?
Yeah, you know, I really expected him to be here when I got back.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, because his bowl's over there and there's food in it. He doesn't seem to have eaten anything.
The garden seems to have been tilled while I was gone. You know anything about that?
But the other thing that he does here is he leaves the invisibility cloak at Hagrid's because he figures he won't need it in the pitch black forest. And I'm going to get to this in just a second. He opens the door and asks Fang if he wants to go for a walk. Without knowing if he needs a collar or anything like that, he just lets him outside. Now, we live near a busy road, so our dog will stay in the yard because we've trained him. If you just opened a door and let a dog run, there's at least a 50-50 shot that he's just going to run. You're not his owner.
Okay, I think that on one hand, Fang is very comfortable and used to this area, and I think Hagrid has obviously let him go with them before without a collar or a leash.
I think it does say at the beginning of this chapter that Fang is in tow with Hagrid, and I guess I kind of took that to mean that Fang just followed him around.
The other part of that, though, is that's Hagrid's dog. Hagrid lets him out without a leash. Fang goes chasing after a fucking puffball or whatever and a squirrel in the forest, and Hagrid goes, Fang, get your ass back here.
Right.
Fang's gonna mind.
Because Hagrid is Hagrid.
Yeah.
Right.
Harry does the same thing. It might not be as effective. Just because, like, if me or you let him out in the front yard and we yell at him, he's probably gonna come back. But if the boys did the same thing...
Oh, yeah, no, he ain't coming.
Yeah.
He'll be like, yeah, I'll get there when I get there.
Yeah, tell mom and dad to come get me, or fuck you.
But the second point I had about this was that he's like, okay, we don't need the invisibility cloak, okay? It's going to be dark. Nobody's going to be able to see us. We ditch the cloak. We walk outside with a giant-ass animal, who's probably being pretty fucking loud. And then I make my wand light up. Harry, sure, it's dark outside, but guess what people can see in the dark? Fucking light. Idiot.
Oh, we're not worried about anybody from the castle looking down at us anymore.
Right. Okay, I just looked at your face and you were being sarcastic. I was like, what are you talking about, Jade? Yes, we are.
Nope.
Duh.
Nope. Groundskeeper's gone. It's not weird at all for there to be people wandering around in the forest.
I hated that so much because it was within a paragraph. He's like, don't need the invisibility cloak. Might as well light our way. And then I had the question, if they had the invisibility cloak on and they lit their wand underneath the cloak, could that light their way but render the light invisible to anybody else? Or am I just overthinking this whole thing?
I would think it would light whatever was under the cloak with you.
Okay, but it probably wouldn't go beyond the cloak.
Probably wouldn't permeate the cloak because the cloak has to be thick enough to completely cover you.
That's true. If it's see-through, then they could just see through.
Right. So if they can see light, they could see you,
okay.
maybe.
No, that's a solid point. That's like actually fucking science. So, yeah, you're probably right.
But Ron chooses not to light his wand because it could blow up.
Yeah. He's like, I would, but fuck that.
Because, again, his friend's an asshole and hasn't bought him a new wand yet.
Right?
Or the school itself, which probably has a fund for such things.
Well, as our boys are sneaking out of the castle, I think I'm going to sneak over to the fridge and grab another beer. Sounds like a plan. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. And we are back for the conclusion of this episode. Did you like that? Did that sound nice?
I got like a weird, like vampy vibe. I don't know what it was.
Well, I'll work on it and I'll get back to you. So, using the light of Harry's wand, he finds 2 spiders heading towards the Forbidden Forest. And Ron, he's like, oh, great. Yeah, okay. So they walk towards the forest until the trees grow so dense overhead that there's no light from the moon. And then their spiders turn off the trail. Harry's got his wand and he can see the spiders crawling around on the ground. And the last time he was in the Forbidden Forest, Hagrid specifically told him, do not go off the path.
Which I'm pretty sure he did.
Yes, they did. They did. They did. But he was with Hagrid that time. Now he's alone.
Yeah, here he goes again.
And it just occurred to me, Fang is a fucking coward. And Hagrid calls him out for it. That's who he chose to take with him. He can be with Fang, but he's a fucking coward, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have a dilemma. They know they're not supposed to go off the trail, but they want to follow the spiders. And Hagrid also told him to follow the spiders. So what's a guy to do?
Strap in and go.
Yeah. Ron's like, well, we already made it this far. Fuck it.
And it's kind of slow going because the brush is real thick. But after about half an hour, Fang starts barking, and it freaks everybody out. They hear something big and heavy snapping branches. And Ron's like, no. And this is the way that Jim Dale?
Jim Dale.
The way that Jim Dale.
Jim Dale. It's Jim Dale. It's one name. It's Jim Dale.
The way that
he's not one of those weird people with 2 names. Jim Dale.
The way that Jim Dale says shut up back to Ron, I thought was real harsh.
Yeah, it was. Harry came off like a straight up dick. I completely sympathize with Ron, though, because you're in the woods they're chasing small spiders. By small spiders, they're not talking about little spiders. They're talking about tarantula-sized spiders.
Ugh.
This is little. Okay, this is what they're following through the woods. And so Ron hears this big giant thing coming through the woods at them. My first thought would be, it's a giant spider. We're fucked. Oh no. Oh no. I don't want to be here any fucking more, okay? I'm out. I'm done. I quit. Time to run. I'm not dealing with giant spider.
I mean, you've watched horror movies with me before.
Oh, yeah.
So you know that my reaction to things like this is very much like Ron's. I'm going to make noise. I'm going to move a lot. It's not going to be quiet.
Move a lot, right? No, and well, that's what Harry goes like, dude, you don't want it to hear you. And Ron goes, well, it already fucking heard Fang.
Again, the voice of reason.
Right. It knows we're here and it's coming, Harry. You fucking idiot. Let's go. And no, he doesn't.